It hadn't been 6 weeks since the Pearl Harbor attack, and the entire nation was deep into war mode. The suspense of whether the US could stay out of the war that had started in Europe 2 years earlier was over. Every day, the newspapers were all about the war. Yet when editors stumbled upon a story promising a break from the war updates, they jumped on it, hoping it would divert people's minds from the grim news from the battlefronts and boost paper sales. Here's the story of a jealous guy going crazy in North Carolina, killing 3 people in one night. It became one of the first nationally covered murder cases during World War II, lingering in the memories of those in the South. The date was January 15th, 1942. Picture this: a misty morning enveloping the North Carolina countryside. The winter sun, defeated in its quest to pierce through the fog, surrendered to a damp gloom, intensifying the bone-chilling January cold. The scene was straight out of a suspenseful movie, where nature itself set the stage for a chilling drama. Deputy Merton Whitley, arriving at the sheriff's office in Smithfield, shed his coat and remarked to Sheriff Kirby L. "Good day for a murder. This, a well-worn joke, considering murder was a rare event in Johnston County. Now, imagine this chill town called Smithfield, pretty much in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by fields and farms. About 5,000 people call it home, and it's got this whole vibe of tranquility. People doing their thing, working hard, minding their business. But here's the kicker. Little did Whitley know, his words were about to turn into some eerie prophecy. This peaceful little bubble was on the verge of getting rocked, not by 1, but 3 gruesome murders that would flip the script on Smithfield's laid-back life. The first report of a murder came in minutes after Whitley showed up. An excited caller urgently pleaded with the sheriff to rush to the Lee farm because someone had shot and killed Grady Lee. "When did it happen?" Sheriff Rose inquired. "A few minutes ago," the caller replied, revealing that Grady Lee had been shot while having breakfast at his kitchen table. Someone shot him through the window. Upon the sheriff's swift promise to head over, he and Whitley raced to the farm where the 28-year-old victim supposedly lived. Moving carefully through the dense fog, a guy in overalls suddenly showed up, waving his arms like crazy in front of the sheriff's car. If the car had been moving at just 25 miles per hour, there would have been no chance to stop in time. The man, speaking in a rush before the sheriff could scold him for his reckless move, exclaimed, "I recognized your car, Sheriff, and I'm glad I found you. There's been a murder." "We've got a report on it," Sheriff Rose responded. "We're on our way there right now. You're going right past it. It's here, right over there." He pointed to a house looming in the fog about 100 feet behind him. "It's Cap Rayner. That's the Rayner house. Cap Rayner is lying there in his front yard, with 2 holes in his head." Getting out of the car, Rose and Whitley followed the guy to where serious farmers stood around a young guy's dead body near the porch. Once handsome, he now lay sprawled in pajamas, with 2 shotgun wounds on his head. It seemed like he might have been shot while standing on the porch, falling down the steps. The gathered men had little information, so the sheriff entered the house, where the sound of a woman sobbing echoed. Apologizing for the intrusion, he explained the necessity of questioning her. However, the woman dealing with the heartache could only give bits and pieces of info. She didn't know the killer, but it was dark when someone banged on the porch, calling out, "Cap, come out here." Cap, getting out of bed, went outside, and then she heard 2 shots. Rushing out, she found him on the ground and couldn't think of anyone who would want to kill him. Coroner E.N. Booker arrived, declaring that Cap Rayner had died almost instantly from 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Whitley handed the sheriff a shell from a 16-gauge shotgun found near the body. After that, they headed to the Lee farm, where the first murder was reported. There, they encountered another weeping woman, elderly this time. On the kitchen floor lay Grady Lee, face contorted, blood seeping from a gruesome head wound. Coroner Booker, kneeling beside him, swiftly declared that the victim was still alive and urgently needed to be taken to the hospital. Interrogating the distressed elderly woman, who turned out to be Grady Lee's mother, the sheriff learned that Grady had been shot through the window while having breakfast. She couldn't identify the assailant, but she recounted how the man had tried to force his way into the kitchen. Kicking the door, he demanded entry, but before anyone could respond, he circled the house and fired through the window. Returning to the door, the gunman kicked it once more. The distraught woman had yelled at him to leave, informing him he had already killed her son. In response, a voice from outside threatened, "I'm going to kill you too!" The ominous threat was followed by a chilling, demonic laugh. "What did you do then?" Sheriff Rose inquired. The woman, weeping, explained that she had rushed to her daughter Ruth's room, instructing her to run for her life. Pleading with the sheriff, she implored, "Please find him. He's taken Ruth. He'll kill her." She explained that her daughter Ruth, who's married to Herman Allen, usually stays near Benson. However, last night, she had arrived at her mother's home, expressing a desire to spend the night. Inspecting the daughter's bedroom, the sheriff discovered signs of a struggle: torn bedding, an overturned chair, and discarded clothing. The distraught mother pointed out that her daughter must have left wearing only her nightie. "We'll find her," the sheriff said. Leaving the house, he and Deputy Whitley traced the trail from the window where the gunman targeted Grady Lee. Following a chaotic trail of footprints, they stumbled upon a clear mark of a woman's bare foot, quickly overshadowed by the heavy, well-worn imprints of a man's shoes. Following the faint trail across the farmyard, they reached a smokehouse, behind which the ground had been disturbed. The sheriff pieced together that there had likely been a struggle between the girl and her captor. Further prints revealed her escape route, leading toward a nearby stable. At one end of the stable, they found a small corral, within which lay the lifeless body of a once attractive brunette. Shot through the head, the only cloth covering her body was a silken nightie. Talking to neighbors uncovered that one lady heard a gunshot early in the morning, then 2 more shots right after. No one had witnessed anyone moving about, and the unknown killer seemed to have slipped through the morning fog undetected. Ruth Allen and her husband Herman, as discovered, had been one of the most beloved young couples in the community. Ruth, a lively brunette, was always ready for fun and laughter. Sheriff Rose couldn't shake the impression that Ruth had relished being the center of attention, especially from the opposite sex. People hesitated to reveal whether she invited such attention or if her husband held any resentment. Nevertheless, everyone agreed that her brother Grady was a good-natured, likable guy with no known enemies. Anxious to reach Herman Allen, Rose discovered that no one seemed to know his whereabouts. However, he did learn that Ruth and Herman had been out the previous evening with another couple, leaving Herman in Benson. The sheriff dispatched 2 deputies to find Herman Allen, and then talked with Coroner Booker, who had just finished examining the young woman's body. Booker reported, "Mrs. Allen was killed with a 16-gauge shotgun. The shot struck her in the eye. She died instantly." Further inquiries, coupled with tire tracks found at the scene, convinced the sheriff that the killer had made a getaway in Grady Lee's car. The mother gave the license number and a description, sent out to everyone on the lookout. Returning to his office, Rose received a call from the hospital, informing him that Grady Lee had passed away at 9 a.m. The foggy January morning had now claimed 3 lives. Deputy Monroe Parker then shared information he had gathered about Cap Rayner. He was a man who couldn't resist paying romantic attention to any pretty girl, a local Casanova. He played the field, courting both married and single women. Several husbands warned him to stay away from their wives. Parker continued, "I got the names of some of these women and talked to them, but if they know who killed Rayner, they either fear telling or don't want to get involved." Deputies returning from Benson reported that Herman Allen had left the car at a gas station, where he and his wife had been with another couple. Allen briefly stayed there, mentioning that he was going to spend the night with his mother, who lived about 6 miles away. Herman Allen had mentioned he was going to check out a job nearby the next morning. Deputies confirmed that Allen had gone to his mother's house, but left early in the morning, with no one there aware of his whereabouts. Sheriff Rose, convinced that the 3 brutal murders were the work of the same killer, considered a suggestion from one of his men that Herman Allen might be another victim. However, he dismissed the idea, leaning toward Allen as the prime suspect. The officers discovered that Herman Allen had a dark history. 11 years ago, he had killed a man in Benson, accusing him of getting cozy with his wife. Tried, convicted, and serving over 4 years of a 5-year sentence. Rose was confident they would soon have Allen in custody. The description of Grady Lee's car, in which the killer had fled, assuming it was Allen, had been broadcast statewide. Tracks in the Lee farmyard indicated a very soft tire, and a friend of Grady Lee revealed that the car had no spare. "He won't go too far with that flat tire," Rose guessed. "In fact, I have a hunch that we just might find him nearby if we go back there and pick up the trail of that car he's driving." Sheriff Rose and 2 deputies followed the trail with surprising ease. The defective tire on the right rear wheel made it easy for them to track it in the soft earth at the side of the country road. They briefly lost the trail on harder ground, but picked it up again, repeating this pattern over a distance of less than 5 miles. The trail finally took them to a bumpy logging road into the woods, leading them to a crossroads. On one corner, was an old building with a sign for a blacksmith. In front of the building was a car, perfectly matching the description of Grady Lee's car, reported as the killer's getaway vehicle. On his knees beside that car was a man working on the right rear tire. "Your name Herman Allen?" Deputy Whitley asked him quietly. The guy looked up, staring at the officers. "Sure is," he snapped. "Why does it matter?" The sheriff stepped forward and delivered the news. "You are wanted for the murders of your wife, Cap Rayner, and Grady Lee." Remaining on his knees beside the car, Allen stared back at the sheriff for a long minute. Eventually, he spoke up. "You're making a mistake. I haven't murdered anybody. I've been drunk all night." While Whitley kept the suspect covered, the sheriff reached into the front seat of the car, pulling out a 16-gauge shotgun. He sniffed at the muzzle, detecting the strong scent of burned gunpowder. A box of shells lay on the front seat. With a nod from Rose, Whitley ordered Allen to put out his hands. Handcuffs appeared from the deputy's hip pocket. As Allen complained, saying he didn't need cuffs, Whitley put them on. Two men from a nearby house approached, informing the sheriff that Allen had frightened them. The blacksmith recounted how Allen had demanded assistance with his flat tire, cursing them out when they couldn't help. Allen then threatened to shoot them. To avoid the chance of a mob going after him, Rose chose to take Allen to the jail in Goldsboro, the main place in Wayne County, instead of going back to Smithfield. On the drive, Allen finally spoke up from his quiet mood with some crying. "I want my baby," he cried. Whitley asked, "Who's your baby?" "Ruth. She's just like my child to me. Oh, I want to see her again." Allen sobbed. "Sorry, but that's not happening," Rose told him with a serious face. Attempting to extract a confession, Rose pressed Allen, who continued to deny killing anyone. He insisted that he'd been drunk and remembered nothing after his wife and the other couple left him in Benson the previous evening. "They left me to walk for nearly 15 miles. I got drunk. Finally, I went to sleep. I don't know what happened after that," Allen claimed. With Herman Allen safely incarcerated, the sheriff and his investigators had better luck gathering information from local people. The couple who had been with Allen and his wife the night before revealed they had started at a tavern near Smithfield. After a few drinks, Herman became erratic, saying to Ruth, "When I love you too much, and when I get mean to you, I'm too rough." His violent demeanor frightened Ruth, and she pleaded for help to escape from her husband. That's why they had left Herman at the gas station, where he demanded a stop for cigarettes. At Ruth's request, they drove her to her mother's house, fearing Herman would kill her if she returned home. Furthermore, one source revealed that Herman had discovered Ruth had been going on dates with Cap Rayner, and he had warned Rayner to stay away from her if he wanted to live. Others claimed Herman's jealousy knew no bounds, and he would be insanely jealous if another man even glanced at his wife. Rumors circulated that Ruth, resenting his possessive jealousy, had defied him until fear crept in. Sheriff Rose believed he had enough evidence to charge Herman Allen with murder, but he's still looking for a confession. Rose decided to employ some psychology. He chatted with Allen, subtly weaving Ruth's name into their conversations. "The guy I was talking to last night said she was the prettiest girl in the county," Rose mentioned. Herman took the bait, reminiscing about his beloved Ruth, often struggling to hold back tears. One morning, he summoned the sheriff, and in front of Deputy Whitley and a stenographer, he poured out the tragic story. "I loved my wife too much," Herman began, "but she didn't do right by me. I warned her not to see Cap Rayner. I told her he was no good. I warned her, and I warned Rayner. I said I'd kill them if it didn't stop." He admitted to being hurt, and angry when he found his wife and friends had left him at the gas station. He walked miles to his mother's house, unable to sleep, and then to his own house, where he retrieved his shotgun and a box of shells. "I took care of Rayner first. I shot him on his porch. Then I reloaded and shot him again. I went to the Lee farm, shot Grady Lee, and found Ruth there. I shot her down by the stable." Filled with regret, Allen expressed his desire to bring Ruth back. His statement was transcribed, and he signed it. Quickly indicted on triple murder charges, Allen went to trial on February 10, 1942, facing a jury for Grady Lee's murder. The prosecution, led by Charles Canaday, argued that Allen's actions showed deliberate and premeditated murder. Allen's defense argued that he went crazy because of his wife's teasing and pleaded insanity. The jury deliberated for only an hour and 45 minutes before returning a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Judge Jeff Johnson sentenced Allen to die in the gas chamber at the state prison. Despite an appeal for a new trial, the appeal was denied. On October 30, 1942, Herman Allen, a man oddly driven to violent murder 4 times by the sweet passion of love, met his fate at the North Carolina State Penitentiary. paying the price for recklessly taking the life of his brother-in-law, Grady Lee. Poor Grady had nothing to do with it, just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, being Ruff's brother and all.